Hey, what's up, everyone? I just wanted to do this week, today's Sunday, a little weekly wrap up. This isn't in my usual scheduling of videos. I don't have a usual schedule, but I feel compelled to do a weekly update. So we're going to talk about the books I finished this week and the books I hauled this week. And also, cut! I also found this table on the side of the road, and it fits perfectly against my wall. So I was able to move all my floor books to actual furniture, which is nice. So, back to the programming. I finished 2 books this week, as far as I can tell. I don't actually track the day that I finish things, but I know these 2 were this week. And the first one is an ebook, so I don't have a physical copy to show you. I think I do own a copy somewhere, but not here. That is The Hobbit. The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. The classic 1937 fantasy book following the adventures of Bilbo Baggins as he joins the dwarvish company of Thorin Oakenshield as they try to reclaim the treasure under the mountain, which is guarded by the dragon Smaug. So, The Hobbit I've read so many times as a kid. I don't know how many times, but a lot. And as an adult, I had never actually physically read The Hobbit. I had listened to the Andy Serkis narration a couple years ago, which was really fun. I primarily like audio for rereads or re-listens, since I don't really take in the material well, so if I already know the story, I find audio to be more fun. But yeah, The Hobbit, it's great. That's my screensaver, that's Batman. I like Lord of the Rings more. I haven't finished the trilogy as an adult, but there's something about The Hobbit. It's probably the language is more simple and the story is more simple. It's very comforting, and I still do really love it. But for me, there's something missing where it's not like a top tier perfect read for me. Of course, if you haven't read The Hobbit and you're interested at all in fantasy, like, you have to go read The Hobbit. It's one of the foundational modern works of 20th century fantasy. At least, like, in inspiring what came later. So, The Hobbit, I think I'll always like reading that tale. So that was one book I finished. The next book I finished, I actually just got home from returning it to the library. And then I was like, oh, I should make a video. So I don't have the copy. It was a physical library pickup. But that's Oathbreakers. Oathbreakers. Can you see that? Oathbreakers. This is by Matthew Gabriel and David M. Perry. And this is subtitled The War of Brothers That Shattered an Empire and Made Medieval Europe. So Oathbreakers is a history book that covers the Carolingian Empire and the Carolingian Civil War. Now, if you don't know what that is, the Carolingian Empire is from the 8th and 9th centuries AD in the middle of Europe, basically, like France and Germany and Italy. And the Carolingians were a dynasty within the group known as the Franks, the Frankish peoples, who, you can see France, the word France comes from that. But they're named Carolingian because of not the founder, but the most important man in the dynasty, Charles the Great, Charlemagne. Latin for Charles is Carolus. So that's where Carolingian comes from. And this civil war detailed in Oathbreakers is the civil war between the grandsons of Charlemagne. That would be Charles the Bald, Lothar I, and Louis the German. and it talks about how this civil war, the issue of succession from Louis the Pious to his three sons, divided the empire and shattered this Carolingian empire into basically France and Germany. I don't buy that the Civil War exactly shattered it. It seemed like things were going that way already. But really interesting subject material. I've never actually read about the Franks or the Carolingians or Charlemagne. So that was great. The book is so-so. I didn't really buy a lot of what the authors were saying, and the writing really didn't do it for me. It's yeah, I'll just say I didn't like the writing, and I could pull up examples from my notes, but I'm not going to do that here. So it was like an average read overall. I had a lot of fun with learning about this middle period of the Middle Ages and this like transitory period in Central Europe, Central Western Europe. But I wish the authors talked more about the Holy Roman Empire, which Charlemagne was crowned Holy Roman Emperor in 800. And they don't really talk about the Holy Roman Empire after that, despite the rest of the book there being a Holy Roman Empire. And there's minimal mentions of the Byzantines and the Arab empires as well. So I kind of wish there was more on that. But the focus was the Carolingians. So those are two books that I finished this week. I also went back to Goodwill. I hadn't been to Goodwill in a long time because I was feeling guilty about having gotten so many books in Boston at the Brattle Bookshop. But I went back to Goodwill and I got a decent haul. Got the Penguin Dictionary of Economics, edited by Graham Bannock, Ari Baxter, and Ray Reese. Just a reference material, A to Z of economic terms. I don't know if I'm going to keep or read this, but I like reference books, so I picked it up for now. Somebody's doing a lawnmower outside. Sorry about that. Next up, The Essential Writings of Ralph Waldo Emerson. This is a modern library paperback with an introduction by Mary Oliver, famous poet of America in the 20th and 21st century. And I think I've talked about Emerson a few times on this channel, but I used to have the Penguin Classic Nature and Other Selected Writings, and I really didn't understand what Emerson was saying in a lot of those essays, so I got rid of it. But now this is a much larger edition than the Penguin Classic, and it includes a whole plethora of essays and poems and kind of like philosophy works by Emerson that I'm very glad to have it, and I hope to revisit at some point. I know I'm going to be a Thoreau guy, and I think if I'm a Thoreau guy, I should have some affinity towards Emerson, even though I know they're not the same. But I feel like one might lead to the other, so I'm glad to have this around. And it also includes commentary by Henry James, Robert Frost, Matthew Arnold, Oliver Wendell Holmes, and Henry David Thoreau. So a lot of good stuff in this Modern Library fat, floppy paperback. Really, I think this was my best find. Maybe. I guess piggybacking off of Emerson, we'll go to another New England native of the mid-19th century. Got Nathaniel Hawthorne with the Portable Hawthorne. This is an old Viking portable. Viking Portable is known for collecting famous authors, a lot of snippets and excerpts of their major works. So this is the revised and expanded edition, edited by Malcolm Cowley, famous 20th century literary critic. And we got a full page photograph of a house, perhaps where Hawthorne lived. I have no idea. I don't know much about Hawthorne, other than he was in and around Boston in the mid-19th century, and he wrote the Scarlet Letter. This Viking Portable has, what do we got? A couple collections of his tales, excerpts from the Scarlet Letter and other romances, like The House of Seven Gables. And then part 3, very interesting, journals and letters. That's great. I didn't even see that when I was looking at Goodwill. So if I ever get to Hawthorne, this will probably be my introduction, which is awesome. So you just saw an old Viking Portable edition. I think these are the newer editions. Not that this book looks new at all. This is the Portable Coleridge. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, one of the early Romantic poets. This is edited by I.A. Richards, a leading British literary and cultural critic, professor at Harvard from 44 to 63. So Coleridge was one of the English Romantics. I think he's most famous for the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which is a long poem. This includes, what do we got? Poems. And we got 216 pages of poems. Then, oh wow, almost 90 pages of letters. Then notebooks and table talk, politics, theologico-metaphysical, and then criticism. So I was expecting pretty much only poems here, but this is fascinating. I don't really know much about Coleridge, but it's the back says this faithfully represents all facets of this complex, haunted genius. And it includes Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Christabel, Kubla Khan, Dejection, and some other great stuff. So, another awesome find. I collect a ton of old poetry that I'm working my way chronologically through things, so I'm not there yet. But man, this is awesome. Okay. Another modern library paperback, we have Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. And I have read Siddhartha in a different translation, but this is a new translation by Susan Bernofsky and an introduction by Tom Robbins. And I loved Siddhartha the first time I read it. I read it in a very rural and desolate landscape while I was traveling, and I think that setting made it all the more powerful. But Siddhartha is a novel about a young Indian man searching for his soul, his passion in life, just trying to find out who he is. And it's a very introspective Eastern mysticism spiritual novel, and I think it's great. I love Hermann Hesse, although I really haven't read enough of him. I've only read Siddhartha and Damien, which I love Damien too. I need to reread that. But yeah, new translation. I am excited to go through both of my copies and see which one I like better. Like which translation. This is the better edition. Physically, it has an introduction. There might be notes. There's a glossary at the end. So, yeah, awesome to find this. I've been looking for a nice copy of Siddhartha for a while. So, great. And last, probably least in terms of this haul, no, second least, The Dictionary of Economics is least. This is second least. Not to say it's bad or anything, but we have In the Shadow of the Sword by Tom Holland. The Birth of Islam and the Rise of the Global Arab Empire. Now, hopefully I'm going to be reading Dominion by Tom Holland about the Christian Revolution. Hopefully I'm going to read that in the next month or two for quarter 2 of Historathon. But after I read about the Christian history throughout the centuries and millennia, I have to read about Islam. I've read a little about like the tenets and the facets of Islam, like the religion itself, but I've never dedicated any study to the political history of Islam and the Arab peoples that derived from that. And Islam is a huge, huge part of the Middle Ages. Like medieval times is more than just Western Europe. There was a whole world going on, and for my medieval readings, it's mostly been in England and a little bit in France and Scandinavia and such. I haven't really made it to the Byzantines, and I've never made it to the Arabs, the various Caliphate dynasties, Umayyads, Abbasids, and of course Muhammad and the founding of Islam. So I know a little bit about it, but definitely very important for medieval geopolitics. And yeah, they made it all the way into Spain. There were incursions into the Byzantine areas and parts of Eastern Europe at times. So yeah, I don't know anything about how this book has been received, this one by Tom Holland. I know Tom Holland's a pretty popular historian these days and podcaster. So excited to check it out after I read about the Christians, because Islam it doesn't stem from Christianity, I guess, but I'm not sure exactly, actually. But it's all people in the book, I know that. So there's my ignorance, religious history-wise. So there you go. Those are my 6 books from Goodwill. I'll probably get rid of the Dictionary of Economics, just because I don't know or care about economics that much, and I'd be better off with like maybe a more introductory work that's not just references. So yeah, that's my weekly update, plus that video of the new side table that I found on the street. So yeah, thank you for watching. That's it. Talk to you later.